You've probably heard that old saying, eyes are the windows to the soul. But what if it's more than just a cliché? Today, we're diving into a text called The Bright Eyes, Windows to Beauty, where the author uses the human eye as the star of a much, much bigger argument. So let's unpack the case they make.
So right off the bat, the author kicks things off with his very idea. They're basically saying, hey, the eye isn't just some piece of biology. No, it's framed as this deeper connection between our inner selves and the outside world. It's a really poetic starting point, and it totally sets the philosophical tone for the entire argument we're about to explore.
And this leads us to the big question, the one that really drives this whole thing. The author points to the eye's incredible, mind-boggling complexity and asks, is it even possible that something this intricate could have just evolved from a simple, single-celled organism? That right there, that's the core argument we're going to deconstruct. All right, so here's the roadmap. The author builds their case with 5 key lines of reasoning. We're going to follow that path, starting with that big origin question, then moving through the specifics of light and vision, checking out the eye's defenses, and wrapping it all up with a final point that might surprise you: beauty as the final proof.
Okay, first up, the question of origin. The source's whole argument really boils down to this one claim. Vision is an incredibly complex system, and because of that complexity, the author argues, it has to point directly to the work of an intelligent designer.
I mean, think about what's actually happening here. Light energy hits your eye, nerve cells somehow convert that into bioelectrical signals, and then your brain interprets it all in an instant. The source really emphasizes this multi-step, super efficient process. It's like a complicated computer program that, in the author's view, couldn't just write itself.
Now for the first couple of pieces of evidence. The author groups these under a really cool title: the designed spectrum. This part focuses on what we can see and, maybe more importantly, what we can't.
So, the first point is that our vision is deliberately filtered. We only see this tiny, tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. According to the author, if we could see things like X-rays or infrared light, our world would just be a chaotic, overwhelming mess of information. It would literally drive us insane. So, this limitation isn't seen as a flaw, but as a protective design feature.
And then there's color. This is the second point. The text highlights how our retinas have 3 types of photopigments for red, green, and blue light. The argument is that these are combined perfectly to let us see this huge, subtle world of color, making everything so much more enjoyable. This, the author suggests, is another clear sign of intentional design for our benefit.
Okay, next up, the argument shifts from the properties of light to the spatial aspects of our vision. The author calls this section the designed field.
Point 3 focuses on our field of vision, and the author uses this great analogy. Imagine if you could only see the world like you were looking through a bamboo tube. Your vision would be so narrow. Instead, we have this wide, scanning view that lets us see the bigger picture, to spot danger, or just appreciate a landscape. This is presented as a crucial design for survival.
So, why 2 eyes? The author makes the case for what's called stereoscopic vision. And you can try this yourself. Close one eye and try to thread a needle. It's way harder than you think. The crucial point is that having 2 eyes gives us essential depth perception. It lets us judge distance and perform precise tasks safely. The argument is this isn't redundant. It's a specific design for navigating a 3D world.
The argument then shifts again, this time from how we see to how our eyes are protected. This next section is called the designed defenses, and it focuses on the eye's many, many built-in safety features.
Have you ever just stopped to think about blinking? We just do it. But the source frames it not as a simple reflex, but as a considerate design. Each blink moistens, cleans, and protects the eye. Without it, our eyes would dry out and get damaged pretty fast. The author presents this as a deliberate, thoughtful maintenance system.
And the defense system doesn't stop there. The author uses these really vivid metaphors. Eyebrows are an umbrella. Eyelashes are sentinels. Eyelids are loyal soldiers that snap shut against threats. And our tears? They're a flushing system that even has antibacterial properties. The argument here is that this is a perfect multi-layered defense mechanism.
So far, all the arguments from the source have been about function. But for the final piece of evidence, the author pivots from the practical to the poetic, making a case based purely on aesthetics.
The source poses a really interesting thought experiment. What if our eyes were somewhere else, like on our hands or the back of our head? The author claims to have considered hundreds of alternatives and concluded that any change to the eye's current size or position would just result in ugliness. The argument, therefore, is that their placement is aesthetically perfect.
And this brings us to the author's final conclusion, which moves way beyond function. The claim here is that the very existence of beauty, as seen in the eyes, is presented as the ultimate proof of a designer, a greatest creator.
So, we've walked through the author's entire case for the eye as a product of design, from its complex function to its layered defenses and right on through to its aesthetic perfection. It's a journey that starts with biology and ends with beauty. We've laid out the argument, now the final question turns back to you. When you look at all this, what do you see?